Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I want to talk about the best new fantasy releases I've read that came out in the last 3 months of this year. So, immediately breaking that, I'm going to speak about one that I somehow completely forgot came out in Q3. I think it came out in September, and that is Ben Aronovich's novella The Masquerades of Spring, which is part of his Peter Grant / Rivers of London series. This was a pretty short, great little self-contained story that takes place approximately 100 years before the main series, and it follows the mentor figure of the Peter Grant series on a case that takes him across the pond, and we basically get a mystery story that's set in the Roaring Twenties of New York with the whole jazz scene, and we do get a little peek at what was, and this is apparently based on historical fact, the LGBTQ scene of that time, which I didn't even know was a thing. But yeah, it was really, it was okay. I found it more fascinating mainly because of what it actually covered than the story itself. And it was an okay read. It was something to tide us over until the next Peter Grant novel. But yeah, that came out in Q3. Starting with the books that actually came out in over the course of October, November, December. First of all, I have my second most anticipated release of this year, and that is Benedict Jacka's An Instruction in Shadow. And this is the sequel to my favorite book of 2023, and it just kept the ball rolling. Like Benedict Jacka completely blew me out of the water with this latest series, and this one it is a bit slower than the series opener. It does take a step back, but it does some very necessary things. It does some very interesting things, and you do begin to see the stage being set for some much more massive storylines to come down the line. So, absolutely engaging book. As soon as that came, I picked it up. I read it. I couldn't put it down. Top notch book. And once again, I'm waiting an entire year for another Benedict Jacka book. And you know what? When that next book is coming out, I'm probably going to reread both of these because they're short, they're very fast paced. This is urban fantasy at its very finest. And Benedict Jacka is the skill he's accrued over these years, first writing the Alex Vare series and now this, is just incredible. Like, this series for me has the potential to topple Dresden as the best urban fantasy series that I've read. But we're only 2 books in. Let's see where this goes. It's going to be a very long series. Moving on, the next new release that came out, I think it was October, is Jeff Vandermeer's Absolution, and this is the fourth novel in the Southern Reach / Area X books, and it takes us through 3 different time periods of the whole Area X problem, and we get a deeper look at just some of the mysteries surrounding this ecological strange disaster area, and we get a little bit more insight into the characters and just a lot more. Like, Jeff Vandermeer, he never reveals the full story. He never gives you everything. You'll never get complete closure, but he did peel back more of the curtain for us here, and it was fascinating. This book itself, like, every single Southern Reach book is written in a different way, and in this one we have with the 3 time jumps, we have multiple POVs. Like, it was just great. Like, you always have to be wary when a new prequel / sequel to a good series comes out, and in this one, for me, Jeff Vandermeer added a book that we can be proud of to have as part of this series. That being said, there is a POV in there that is so superbly well written that the utter atrocity that is the internal monologue of that character, like, I can see it causing a lot of people to just DNF it. But it's brilliantly done. As a book, it's just brilliantly well done. An exciting new coda to the series, basically. But anyway, moving on is another book that this book has just an absolutely gorgeous cover art that caught my eye, and from that, just the cover art, I decided I was going to read it, and I was surprised to find it had just such a wonderful story to tell, and that is Julie Long's The Teller of Small Fortunes. This is a cozy fantasy, but it is a bit different from the other ones I've read in that it does contain a strain of darkness throughout it. Like it doesn't shy away from tackling some heavier topics, but at the same time, this is very much cozy fantasy, like low stakes, low stakes, that kind of thing. It's a much more personal story, and it was just a wonderful read. Like Julie Long does touch on a few complicated subjects like immigration and belonging and um, not so much racism as like being racial, being of what it's like to be a minority, and these kind of things. Like these are all just components of the story. By no means is this like a political treatise or anything. It's just components of the story that are baked into it that add more layers and just made it that much more compelling a read. Like like I said, I picked this book up just because that cover art is just absolutely stunning, and I got a really good story in the bargain. I'm excited to see what else Julie Long has in the future coming up for us in the future. But yeah, to keep things moving on, is they wrap up to a pretty engaging trilogy I've been reading recently, and that is Tash Suri's The Lotus Empire. I think this came out late November. I did actually get an arc for this one, and it was a really good follow up to a really good wrap up to what's been a really good series. Like there's just so much about this series that lives rent free in my mind. Like I just love the magic system in here. It's so it's so strange and weird and horrible. Like it's magic that operates purely at the net loss. Like it ostensibly it seems like there's a gain, but it always costs more in the long run. In addition to that, we have this just incredible relationship between multiple characters that forms over the course of the story. We have and this is very much epic fantasy at its finest. So we have warring kingdoms, we have religious tension, we have political unrest. You name it, it's all in here. Like these books they do a lot of things and they do a lot of things really well. And for me, this was like a really good, brutal follow up. It's fast paced and it's intense, and I can easily see myself rereading this series just to marinate in the entire thing all over again. Like absolutely well done. My penultimate choice for this list is Adrian Tchaikovsky's Days of Shattered Fate, and I'm not gonna lie, like Tchaikovsky had big shoes to fill after House of Open Wounds. Like this particular book is the third in the Tyrant Philosophers series, following up on House of Open Wounds, and for me, it actually did a pretty good job. It's Tchaikovsky does every book. Like these are very much urban fantasy books, urban epic fantasy stories. Every book does its own thing in a whole new area with a different cast of characters. So in no way, shape, or form does this try to like one up or be better than House of Open Wounds. It's very much its own thing. We do see characters from the past and elements from the past crop up in here, but this book was just strange and entertaining and engaging and wonderful. The way it's plotted is it almost peaks in the way that like your typical epic fantasy book, it tends to end with a big battle scene. This book, it peaks in the middle with a big battle scene, and then from there you just deal with consequences and just the things that unfurl as a result of this unique plotting choice. Like it was just really, really well done. Like I enjoyed this book start to finish. Not as much as House of Open Wound, but still quite a lot. Like this series, I didn't have the best of times with City of Last Chances, but these two sequels since then, they really smashed it out of the park for me. And it just has this vivid imagination, just a lot of freaky stuff going on. Like these books they're really well done. They're really well done, and I can easily see myself revisiting the series sometime in the future again, just to enjoy everything that Tchaikovsky gets up to in here, because there's just so much you can unpack and enjoy in this series. That's my penultimate choice. And this last one, I'm not even gonna bother to talk about. Like, you know what it is. It's everyone's most anticipated fantasy release of 2025. I'm not gonna share any thoughts here. That's it. That's my list. There were a few notable releases that came out here. Came out over the course of like these 3 months, like Tad Williams's wrap up to the Last King of Osternied series, and John Gwynn's wrap up to that Fury of the God. I think it's Fury of the Gods or whatever it is. But in those cases, like, I haven't read the Tad Williams series as yet, and with John Gwynn, like, I'm not a fan of his stuff, so that's why those two aren't included in the list. But I am mentioning them because I'm sure someone is going to go on the comments and go, but you didn't the dumb list, blah blah blah. Anyway, yeah. So that's that's it for me. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.